Plus 10, we're group 3.
What's your name?
Katelyn.
Jordyn.
Lexi.
Braelyn.
Rachel.
Hi. Opera voice.
Okay.
So, I really enjoyed the video this week. I'll just start out with that.
Yes.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really cool and interesting. And then I liked the rap they had with it.
Okay, yeah,
Talked
that
about the
video.
four kinds of
Right.
capital. And I really liked that.
There's 2 videos.
Oh, I was talking about the rap one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
With
the
the capital?
rap one,
Yeah.
I thought the rap was super silly, and I was kind of like, okay, I have to watch this. But then after a while, I was like singing along.
Yeah. This is my
Oh.
jam.
So yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Video.
Well, if we could all I don't know, what was something that you took away from the video?
This is a very good question.
That was one.
What were the 4 things that
The four kinds of capital.
Yeah, capital. Never
Let
mind.
me
Capital. That's the
tell
name.
you. It is social capital,
Okay.
which is the environment and the
That
hearing, the
Cultural.
active, cultural, knowledge, and linguistic.
Social.
Is that
Right.
4?
Yeah.
No.
I said social,
She said social.
cultural, knowledge, and
and
linguistics.
Got it.
That's what I took from it, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
the rap was really cool, but the 3 types of capital is what I took from it the most. That's that's like the information I got from it,
Yeah.
I guess.
I started getting reflective, and I was like, I feel so blessed with the capital that I've had.
Yeah.
Because I've been given lots of opportunities to go, not study in other countries, but go visit other countries and have experiences where I can go learn in other places and have the opportunity to come here and study. So I just felt so blessed that I've had that, even growing up. So I was like, my experiences as a teacher or as a student myself are going to be so different than the ones my students have had.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that even coming here with learning everyone's backgrounds, mine is different than everyone else's.
Yeah.
And I can feel sometimes it's going to be hard to relate as a teacher and a student. So I'm kind of concerned about that because I don't want to have my capital hinder my teaching. I want to be able to use it to be effective. So I was trying to think about that because I think that's what I took away most from it.
That was really solid.
Yeah,
I like
that's
it.
good.
That comment. That got really deep.
Hey.
right here.
Yeah.
I had a similar realization where I was just like, whoa, I'm definitely that mainstream student.
That's
We're all in that rap zone right now. I don't know.
Totally.
But I just thought about it how we really last week we were talking about how we can't control where our students have come from, but we can definitely control the environment, and so just making sure that we are explicit in our instruction and we give them those capital experiences with all those things the language they hear in our class and the experiences we give them.
Give them lots of books.
Yeah.
They might not
Because-
get that at home.
Yeah, I was about to say resources is the really another thing I took from it because they, outside of school, they're not necessarily going to get all those resources, and we have to be aware of that because, their class, they may not be able to afford them.
exactly.
So let them take books home, let them take maybe some technology home.
Yeah, be able to check out iPads or something that they can do. Or another problem is some people or some children don't have Wi-Fi at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe having after hours,
There you
at
go.
school where they can just go on the iPad and work on
Yeah.
homework or something.
Give them that. What's that? That's knowledge.
That's
capital?
knowledge capital.
Yeah, give them that knowledge capital.
I think it was your post I was talking about how some kids will have more resources than others at home, which is hard. Well, I guess it's kind of you can use that as strengths. That way you can give more resources to those who don't have them at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely resources that can be brought home are good. And all you can control is what's in your classroom. So you have to make the most of that. It's kind of
Yeah, at the same
do
time
what you can.
At the same time, you want to be able to have enough supplies and resources in your classroom, but you want to be able to give those resources to students who need them.
Yeah.
So when I was working with one group of ELLs, the teacher would give away books that she photocopied off, and they were just really simple. They could take home that if they lost, it wasn't a big it wasn't an issue.
I like that.
It was very easy, and she had the kids take them each day. So it was they're always taking home something new to be able to look at, to work on, to be practice sight words. So just making sure that you're communicating and bringing those things home is important. But like you said, I think making sure that you have a really balanced classroom full of resources is also important. And then as teachers, sometimes we're not blessed with all of those resources. Oftentimes we're not. And I'm assuming that the first teaching job that I'm going to get once I'm done here, it's probably not going to be where I'm going to have all those resources, and I'm not going to have that money either.
Right, no.
So it's definitely being creative and using what you can use instead of looking at everything negatively. Just taking that and be like, okay, I need to work a little bit harder, but it's all going to be worth it. I think just like remembering that's important too.
I really like your idea of like you're not really, I guess, supposed to photocopy like entire
No, they're
books.
like printable. They're printable books. Like
Oh,
physical
well, whatever,
books.
just whatever it is. I think that's a great resource for students. Like, not, I don't know, the whole photocopy thing, like, to me, I guess it's whatever. But I think that's a great resource, because
Yeah.
then you only have to have one copy, and you can let all of your kids
There's
then
a lot of
read
like free online things, especially for teachers. It's
Yeah.
true.
A lot of web
I like
sources now.
Yeah, I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Any, I guess, individual questions? Or comments?
About the video or?
In general, let's open it to
let's just
floor.
open it.
Okay,
Yeah.
do you want to start talking about context embedded?
Sure.
Yeah.
Explain that a little further.
Yeah.
Okay, so context embedded is having visual resources in your classroom, having PowerPoint outlines, having things that students who are ELLs can visually follow, because if you're going to be up there talking, which even elementary school I've noticed even more that it happens, where students are sitting down, kind of like in college, and teachers are just up there talking about what they need to talk about, and then kind of doing some modeling, like this is what you need to do, and then they like let them go. But for ELLs, it's hard for them to be able to follow that lecture because they're still trying to work on this word means this, and oh, that's what that sentence meant. So it's easy for them to get behind. So by having a context embedded classroom, you can alleviate that pressure of having to follow that by what each word a teacher's saying. So it's basically like having an outline for ELLs to be able to follow. Gives them that ease to be able to learn and work better in the classroom. And then context reduced is like tests where, one question has nothing to do with the other question and a student might have trouble learning or understanding what the question's asking. It's like not having those resources for ELLs. So like oftentimes that happens on tests where you can't have that.
Oh, okay.
But my post just talked about by incorporating context embedded as much as you can. So like, oh, if you're gonna do a PowerPoint, for this math lesson, have papers for them to be able to follow, or have papers they can fill out as they're working with you, so that they can retain the information better and understand it better.
And the nice thing about having like a written outline or something there in front of them, they can always go back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, or if another thing, I don't know if teachers want to go in this depth, but they want to have like a second copy that's in their first language.
Totally.
And then they can kind of like compare and contrast to be like a learning tool as well as more comfortable for them.
That's a great option.
That'd be a great option. How would you do that, do you think, if you had like two or three ELs in your like maybe general ed classroom or like in your classroom who might not speak the same language? That'd be rough.
Yeah, well, so I'm saying it would definitely be tougher on
Yeah.
the teacher to be able to do that. But I think if it's not as many students, you could always have that certain amount of copies every single time.
Yeah.
And always make sure you have that or even more if you needed them.
I like that.
Or maybe like even just the difficult words that you think the
Yeah.
students in English might struggle with, have the
Sure,
translation, so that maybe that can help. Because then it's just doing like the bigger words that maybe would help, ease that
The
connection.
academic language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe before, maybe not even having them in translated, because sometimes they don't translate well.
Totally.
Some words don't.
Yeah.
Maybe instead having them up on the board and like talking about them, like explaining that academic language before you even start, saying like give a definition of it and then like words that are similar to it, so maybe that they can make those connections.
Yeah, and that was another tool that I think someone talked about by having like
I talked about
they do about having academic language and then having them scaffold with their first
Okay.
language and to try and really get that academic language down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, so my post kind of talked about ways to scaffold the academic language by having those examples and non-examples. I was reading that, and then having synonyms. But actually, I was just talking about this in my literacy course. You guys are all gonna do it. It's like you go to school and you teach a kid how to read and write. And we were just talking about how important it is to, when you're introducing new vocabulary, to have a bunch of different synonyms with it, some antonyms if you can, or non-examples. It depends on the word of what's most appropriate. And then have it in a sentence But when you have it in a sentence, what you need to do is create it so that you're flip-flopping a synonym with the word that you're. I'm not saying that right?
A synonym?
Synonym. There we go.
Synonym.
Cinnamon.
No, I can say it. I know what I'm saying, but I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay, but like using that word and the synonym.
I got
okay.
you.
It's okay.
Got you.
It's okay. Interchangeably.
Got it.
So you would say the new word, and then you would say it again. Say like kind of keep going on and say the word that's like it, and then say the new word again with another sentence. Like it's
Cool.
into one whole way, and that really helps students learn new vocabulary.
Because it's just that repetition. They're like, oh, that word's like this word, and I understand because I get this word 1st
Mm-hmm.
No, that's really good. I understood that what you said.
I like that. I like it. Good job.
And then you could definitely apply that to students who are just in the 4th grade who are ELLs too.
Yeah.
Like that can easily go back and forth. So that wouldn't be like a
That's
pull-out
for-
activity. That could be
That's
for
for
everyone.
all students.
Yeah.
I like that.
Vocabulary can be hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
Especially
Spelling
academic
It's rough.
vocabulary.
I was never good at spelling tests.
No.
Those are rough.
No.
I just had a comment from Lexi.
Awesome.
I guess for everyone. I think that if we come away with one thing out of this course, it's that being proficient and also having support in your first language aids you in your second language. I feel like that's like a constant thing that we've been like reinforcing the whole quarter,
Definitely.
which I think is good because it's a misconception.
It is.
I know that was like a question on our site quiz,
Yeah, it
and all
was.
our friends who are LLC majors or who haven't taken this were like, "What? Like, why would that help you?" Like, I don't know. It's just like a misconception that people don't understand,
Yeah.
which is fine. Like, I don't know.
I guess I wouldn't have thought about it if I hadn't taken
Yeah.
courses. But it makes sense.
It
Yeah,
does.
that
I
was
think
my
it's
comment
important.
for you was that when I was reading yours about Cummins' threshold hypothesis, I was just like, oh my goodness, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But I like
Yeah.
Cummins' research. Cummins' research.
Yeah.
I think it all makes a lot of sense to me. Like sometimes you read those like research studies or like info about their research and you're just like, this doesn't make that much sense, or like
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what this means. But everything I've written from him has been pretty clear. And I really
Yeah,
like
I
him.
agree.
I definitely like read it. I'm like, I totally understand this. This is definitely applicable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because we're learning so much about ELLs and that's where he does his research. Maybe that's why. But we used him for our spotlight and he comes up in this book all the time. So I really like
I feel like
him.
a lot of the studies in this class in particular are like really applicable. Like, I feel like they're really relevant.
I can connect them to skills I'll actually
Yeah.
use when I'm
Right.
when I'm working with ELLs.
Yeah.
And say working with LLC.
I hope so because this is preparing us for
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm just like going all over the place. For Rachel, you're talking about like dialects and stuff, and I was just gonna say that it's hard because as teachers we're supposed to accept them, but also teach academic English, which I feel like could come across as like a negative thing for those students if we're like, yeah, that's great, but you're gonna talk this way in the class, you know. So I feel like it's gonna be kind of a challenge for us to be like, oh, like show acceptance while trying to get them to not talk. I don't know.
Yeah,
Especially in
how do you
younger
think
grades.
we should go about that then? If it's going to be difficult, what is a good strategy, I guess?
Yeah.
To accept their language, but also teach academic.
And then I think like a lot of that ties into like it also depends on the student. Like I can't physically change the way the student's gonna speak. So like he or she can actually speak that way. I can only do so much as a teacher and like repetition and being like, oh, we're gonna say it like this. And but if they keep saying it another way, like there's only so much I feel like I can do.
Right.
Do you think that
Social
I don't
capital. Boom, boom.
I don't want to, I guess, try to tell them like, oh, let's not say it that way, because
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything against you, but like I think that goes against accepting their language. So maybe it's more like on tests and papers and like handwritten
That
stuff,
formal.
the formal stuff. That's when they would use academic language, and you teach them, okay, I know you speak this way, and that's great, and that's completely acceptable in this classroom. But when we're gonna write this paper, I want you to use formal language.
Yeah.
I guess.
No, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess
I just
just
want to
being
clarify,
like
I guess.
understanding and saying like, I understand that this is your first language, maybe explain why they should write in that way. Just be like, this is going to be on the test, and I really want you to perform well, and able to do that, you need to be able to write in this language, and I really want you to succeed in that.
And as
just
they
be-
get
yeah.
older,
That's good.
it's definitely more like when you go out and find a job, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be college. When you go find a job, when you go to college, anything you do, you're gonna need to know the academic language. You don't always need to speak it, but you need to know it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
No, it's easily applicable, and I feel like most students will understand that too, especially as they get older.
Yeah. I guess I was just connecting more because I work with kindergartners.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Kindergartners, we had recess with kindergartners today.
did you?
It was
They're
adorable.
the best.
Yes.
I love that.
What was your comment though?
That was it.
Okay, that was it.
I was just saying that it's hard. I was like, dialects are hard because as teachers we need to accept them, also teaching them academic English.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the video. Did you guys understand what they were saying in the video when they were like,
Oh, the different dialects when she like.
when she had those two people having that conversation,
Oh, that was
and it
Bits and
sounded like a
pieces.
foreign language.
Bits.
I
Some
picked
pieces,
up
girl.
on bits.
Keywords.
That was it.
Yeah,
Keywords is what I
keywords.
picked up on, yeah. But that's gonna be just not different languages, but different dialects of English.
Yeah.
That's definitely, it was because we want to set them up for success.
Exactly.
And if they speak, well, it's awful to say, but if they speak more like us, then they will have probably a better future with better jobs and other things. But
That's the really hard part
It's
about
hard.
this. Because you don't want to tell a student that how they do something or their culture or how they speak is invalid, because it's not. It's so
Exactly.
valid and it's so important.
yes,
At the same time, if a person is going to get by in today's culture, I feel like it's really hard to speak another language in America in certain areas where people aren't as accepting, or like you're just gonna, I guess, do better if
it's like a never-ending cycle because
Yeah.
we're teaching them the intolerance because of the intolerance.
yeah.
It's a fine line, and you don't want to be like have a student get offended by that,
Yeah.
because that could easily turn into a thing. And I don't ever want that to be an issue, because I want to be embracing of all cultures and diversity, but like having like
And I guess
if
you need
make
to
time-
really teach your students and the parents to stand up for themselves within cultures.
Yeah.
When they come to you and just feel like your culture is completely relevant in this class and you're accepted and there's no reason you shouldn't be accepted. So stand up for yourself, I guess.
Definitely.
Mini motivational speech.
It's just difficult because we all know that we want the best for those students, and there's a lot we can do as teachers, but there's also a lot that we can't do. It has to do with the student and how they're learning and what they're doing outside of school. Like, there's just so many variables. But there's
Yeah.
also so many things that we can change, so it's just all the time.
It seems really big.
It is really big. That's the
Yeah.
scary part.
Big job.
Big job.
Yeah,
Little pay, big job.
definitely, I agree with that.
Big passion.
Yes, big
So much passion.
So much passion.
What are we on? Okay, here,
I'm so tired.
I will ask a question.
Okay, question.
Okay.
Go, Rachel, go.
So this is for Jordyn. Well, it's actually kind of like all of you guys. It's just off of your question. So you mentioned how you should always incorporate like transition words,
Mm-hmm.
but how do we do that throughout every subject? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, I mean, is that just in English that you do that, or
Well, I know that my reading was focusing on writing,
yeah?
and I'm assuming it was like a little bit older because it was like about paragraphs and essays and things
Yeah.
like that. And just that like the transition words help just like show a lot of understanding and they show proficiency, because if kids are just jumping between ideas, you don't really, I mean, you see that they know English and that they can write it and stuff like that, but with the transition words, like additionally, in summary or things like that, just to like jump between ideas, it really showed proficiency. So I don't really know if it would be, I'm just trying to, I don't know if I'm understanding, but I don't think it would be like applicable to things like math and science, just because it was like with writing.
Well, I mean, you still could when you're writing like mathematical sentences.
Oh, no, I mean like in writing, I don't know. I mean in writing, but not like math.
Oh no, so I meant like
problems.
writing skills.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
well when you're writing for
yeah.
any subject, that's
I
what
guess-
would be applicable.
But I guess I don't know.
How I would go about that if I was a teacher is if I'm teaching a lesson in like math, you would be like, okay, well, long division. How many times does 16 go into 500?
Right.
Yeah. And then so you do that, and then okay, great answer. Now we're going to do this, and you're like point out. You see how I use that transition word, and just like pointing it out throughout the day.
Yeah.
So it's not just in writing. Kids can connect that to scientific experiments. This is also, I guess, kind of writing, but like when you're drawing out your steps, you're like, first we do this, and then we're going to do this. Finally, we did this.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, so it would be because it's like you're reading out loud, writing, speaking about everything.
I guess I was just kind of asking you kind of like answer my question basically. Just like how can we incorporate it more than just writing?
I think that like as
pointing
teachers
it
you're
out
kind of
there.
doing that anyways, like even between like activities throughout the day, like okay, next we're gonna do this and just kind of like I don't know, just think about what words you're using, especially if you're working on a certain set of transition words, try and like use those.
Yeah. So I guess just pointing them out to your students, making sure they see them, making sure they see you using them,
Yeah, in
and
context,
then they can use it
so
in
that they can
context.
understand when to use them.
Yeah, I think they can easily be applied to a lot of different subjects in school.
I think the best transition word we can teach them is thus.
Thus.
Great
Is that
transition
your
word.
fave?
It's my favorite transition for all college papers. It makes me sound smart, so.
I use it. I've done that. Last paper I turned in. I used the
Thus.
I guess I have a question for Katelyn. Do you think an ELL's proficiency in social language supports their learning of academic language?
I think that definitely like take a position on like where they can go academically or like where at different levels there can be. Like of course it's not going to affect in the long run because I feel like you're gonna have teachers and support that can help work on academic language, but except like what is it? If you have ELLs who are quiet and don't want to like socialize with others and are very like inclusive or whatever, that could be really difficult when you're trying to use those social skills to connect to academic language. And so if you can't make those connections, that'll be difficult. But it'll affect it a little bit. But definitely like, you know, building relationships with your students and understanding where they come from and their backgrounds and like incorporating that into your assignments that you give, I think that it can be negotiable. Like you can work through it. I think it's a problem that a lot of ELL teachers face. And so I know that they can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And therefore we all can do it.
Right. Woo.
So I think that just bridging those differences, everything can work out. And then just having high expectations. A lot of things I've been reading lately are just the higher expectations you have for your students, the more they can succeed and the more they'll show you they can succeed. And so just by having those, I could just imagine like how much power you could have in a classroom just by having those expectations of your students.
Right.
It blows my mind.
It does. But high expectations while still being very supportive and helping them
Yes,
achieve
of
those
course.
expectations. So it's
No,
just
of
like
course.
It's not just you can do this.
just
No.
like in psychology where the parent has super high expectations but low warmth and the student branches out and goes.
I think as a teacher you have to.
Yeah, so you just want that perfect.
Yeah. No, I think as a teacher you are going to provide more support than you ever give or ever realize without even knowing it. Just by telling one student, I know you can do this. Like yesterday you did this, you know, math problem. Of course you can do today's math problem. Without even realizing it, you could be making a child's whole day.
Yeah.
And so I think just by giving that support that you don't even think about, I feel like anymore. Because I feel like when I'm working with students, that happens all the time. And the other students or other teachers will point out to me, I'm like, I didn't even realize I did that.
Right.
Because it's just so second nature.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, I'm really big in expectations this week. I've just been reading so much into it. I love it.
One thing I like that I've learned, kind of giving kids those expectations of them to be able to do well.
Yep.
When you're doing math, calling them mathematicians,
Yeah.
and like when
Oh,
you're doing
yes.
writing, call them writers or authors.
We always do that in my practicum course. We call them mathematicians and then scientists. Yes, always when they're making their
Or
observations.
readers, so
Readers.
you are such a great reader. You know what readers do that I've noticed that you've been doing? You decode words by using this strategy. Wow, what a great skill you have as a reader.
Yeah,
Like, just,
she'll
you know,
read
really
a reader.
Reiterating it so much.
Exactly. Like another thing, she'll be like, you know, great mathematicians do like what you just did.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So just really,
language.
yeah.
It's really encouraging.
and then they want to do well for you. So you're warm like that.
So we're at like 23 minutes because we
25.
cut the.
24 minutes. I started it when
She
you started
started.
talking.
Oh, okay.
So we can just go for a little, like,
Does
maybe a couple
anyone-
more minutes?
I'm good.
How do you read my article
Yes, I
thing,
do.
right? What are they called? Bricks and mortars? I don't think I read it right.
Motor.
Motor? Does it matter?
No, it's mortar.
It's
It's like
mortar.
like
What
bricks.
is mortar?
So it's like what you use to connect it.
Did I say
I
motor?
thought it was motor.
Mortar is like this.
Oh, I totally.
sticky
It's
cement.
like,
I read it
it's like
first, it was
frustrated where I never put the R in there, and I totally skip it.
Well,
love
those would be
That's
two
true.
different words.
Um,
But no, it's like it's just what you said, Jordan. It's the cement they're using to connect your bricks together.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you build up a wall of vocabulary,
Yeah.
you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you start applying it and then adding those the mortar or the cement
Yeah.
or motor, I don't know, that's how
Fine,
you
whatever you
get
want
it.
to call it.
whatever.
It's only mortar.
If you
Yeah.
connect
Mortar
it,
is
then
unreal.
you can you're actually applying it, using it, and you understand it better.
Yeah.
And so you acquire it better.
My question was then, so now that I got the pronunciation right,
Yes.
Jordyn, do you think that transition words are much like mortars? Or do you think they're different, I guess? Because I saw maybe some transition words were mortars, but maybe not all.
I could see. I mean, you could look at it a few different ways. I mean, like if the bricks were the like concept of writing and like different ways to put together sentences, and I think the transition words would be like this glue together to do that.
And that's kind of what I read in my post, I guess, is that mortars are like the glue holding the bricks together. So I thought maybe those transition words would go under that category. Okay, that's the last thing I had.
I'm done.
Pretty close. So we're done with the class officially.
Yeah.
Yeah.